Pat, have you got that sheet of paper? What to do with it? It's in there on my desk, on my table.
Well, Michael, this is
Fran, can you mute that?
we called today. I have to say the opening prayer. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Doc, how's it going? Hey, Doc, I
Not
want to
getting any
give you a
audio.
call. I want to give you the call after the meeting. I want to get your recommendation on something.
I'll go off and come back in.
You know, I can see the top part of your head. And there's Brenda. So we have 7 people so far.
Well, I'm here.
You get over on this side, I've got it set up here real nice.
I want my picture.
Well, you need to get over here so you can see.
Yeah, we want to be able to see both of you.
Yeah, I got my audio on now.
Sounds good, Doc.
Thank you.
Hey, Brenda.
Yeah, thank you. I got this new laptop and I tell you, my email is all screwed up.
Is that right?
Of course, that's not hard for me to do, but
Michael, how you doing there? Newlywed?
Well,
Thank
Brenda,
you.
you need to come over to my house and try to
Oh, where you at?
it still works a little bit.
I even hired experts to come in and do it. And
Uh-huh.
that didn't work out too well either.
All right. Well, sounds good. All right.
Hey,
Sounds
good.
good. We'll see you in a bit. Bye. That was Michael Copeland. He's going to log on his phone. And so he'll be here to say the opening prayer.
Is he still up in Colorado?
He's on it. He's back.
He's back.
Yep, he'll be back to work tomorrow. So,
Who?
Michael Copeland. I can imagine we're getting the rain down here. Colorado's getting, all kinds of
I was
weather.
at Walmart yesterday.
Yeah, I've got rain coming through my ceiling right now.
Oh my gosh, you got a problem with the roof then, huh, Doc?
Yeah, they were supposed to have fixed it, but I guess all those high winds must have blown whatever they had used to fix it with. And we called them and they're going to come back today and try to fix it.
Well, I hope they get it fixed.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was nice and cool last night.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Well, both of them.
Well, I know in Colorado, they were, Michael could probably tell us more about this, but, they have the wildfires are burning, pretty badly through Rocky Mountain National Park. And at the same time, they were having like a snowstorm in Denver. I saw that during watching some of the
That
football games.
snowstorm will help.
Yeah, they need a lot of it.
Hope it.
Yeah,
I hope it helped.
me too. But they need a lot. The ground needs to be saturated. It's still so dry in some of those areas. So Oscar, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing great.
There he is.
Hey, Oscar. How you
Smiling
doing?
face. Hey,
We're
Oscar.
doing great. Enjoying the cold weather and the gentle rain here.
Oh yeah. Are you going to be around 1 or so? Can I give you a call afterwards,
Yes,
Oscar?
please. Yes, please.
You want
Yeah,
to just want to
I'll be
talk to you
around.
about that search we have going on right now.
Yes, I was going to ask you about it. See how it's going so far. We've got a few guys out there trying to help out.
We appreciate that. I saw Borstar's out there and Texas
Yep.
Parks and Wildlife and
Sheriff's
Ranger.
office.
Air Force, Sheriff's Office, you know.
You
That's
all,
what's so good about this area. If you got something going on, you got a lot of resources.
yes, sir. Any news?
Not yet. They're still
Yeah.
still searching.
What are they
Okay.
searching for?
For an individual who's missing.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Odor?
Oscar, you losing weight?
No, I think it's the screensaver.
Oh, that's what it is.
I think it's what do they call it on the smartphone? The filter. I guess it's a filter.
Well,
I think my ears. I think my
there's
ears.
Mike
screwed.
Brad. She just looked
Say
at the
again?
picture. Mike, if you'll put that on 90-degree turn to it, and then hit it on HD, it'll go ahead and give you a full screen there, and we can see your bride then.
Well, I'm just lucky to be on it.
Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Like Mike must have brought that cold weather with him down from Colorado.
yes, I did. It was 14 degrees when we left. We're trying to get out of town. We stopped at Walmart to get a few things.
Insert cash or select payment type.
Well, we have a pretty awesome program today, I'll tell you. You're going to learn more about monarch butterflies than you ever knew.
Good.
I'm looking forward to that. Are they migrating through that state natural area right now?
The double.
I think the migration, they've already gone through this area, but we have these two amazing interns that are going to talk all about it.
Awesome.
We had them last week for 2 days. And then
I
they're
didn't
gone.
see any here.
Hey, Rachel.
Hello. Hi.
Hey, David.
Oh, David.
Hello.
David always looks sharp, doesn't he? I'm telling you.
Yeah. Oh,
What? Dumb court hearings, man. Keep having them. Even though they're on Zoom, they still require us to wear the uniform.
So we just had an iPhone join us. Who was that? Says iPhone.
That's probably Rita.
Could be Rita. We'll see her smiling face show up here in a moment.
I'm gonna go there. Okay, stop here.
And we have our guest speakers are here, which is always a good thing.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hello.
We can't tell who one of them is.
Yeah, our lighting's a little dark in here. Might need to open the
The
blind.
mask, the mask.
Just that last one.
And George just joined us. We'll see if the Sunshine Queen is going to join us. Here we have Cynthia.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am on.
Hey, George.
Hey, George.
Good afternoon.
And we have Kathy that just joined us.
On the floor or your vest? Who's on the
Okay,
floor?
we'll see you soon then.
Your vest? Okay.
Okay. Okay. We're probably going to start in a few minutes. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Hey, Kathy.
Hey, hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So Kathy, you're on the road somewhere, huh?
Anna's.
Yeah, I'm pulled off, so I'm pulled over.
Alrighty. Well, thanks for pulling over and joining us.
Yeah.
This weekend I see Robert Vargas on the road side on.
Mhm. There and there.
What's really nice is you can join either with your computer or your iPhone. Gives you flexibilities if you're on the road.
Okay.
So we have 17 participants so far. We'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. I actually invited the Lions Club to join us too. They've been considering having Zoom meetings and I told them it's really easy to use and they're welcome to join us, but I don't see any of them so far other than Doc, right? And George.
I've always been here. I'm always here.
That's right. Here we have Gloria right now. Public Health Service, there's second. Chris. Good. Hey, I'm in just starting a meeting. Can I call you back right afterwards? Like about 1 o'clock? Okay, great. Look forward to talking to you. Goodbye.
I guess y'all notice me and Pat are having a fight, so she's way over there.
6 feet apart. Hey, Gloria.
I'm eating. I don't want everybody to see me eating.
It just makes us envious.
It does, Pat. Just eat away and enjoy it. He doesn't care. Look, he's eating.
Supposed to be a lunchtime meeting, right? If we were at the Ramada, that's what people would be doing.
Right?
A Monarch butterfly today. They're going to talk about that.
Okay.
You're going to like it.
Okay, everybody, I've got 12:05. We're going to go ahead and begin the meeting. This is Zoom meeting number 17. Michael, can you open us up in prayer, please?
I will do that. Thank you, dear Lord, for this day. Thank you for the blessings that you bestow upon us. Thank you for this club and the things we're able to do in our community. Be with us, dear Lord, as we deal with this pandemic and help us as we continue to meet this way on Zoom and still try to do all the things in our community that we do, that we keep Rotary Housing and the Rotary Park and all the charities and things that we help, the school children. We're so thankful we're able to continue when others struggle. But our leadership has continued to draw us to continue and meet and do your work. Be with us in all we do, dear Lord. We pray for the speakers today. We're excited about the subject and ready to learn. Be with us all. Be with us all in our endeavors, in the things that we've got going on in our lives. Be with David as he's got a big thing he's going through right now, and we pray that you'll be with him and help him through all of that and the great things that will come from that. Be with us in all that we do and forgive us of our sins, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Michael.
Up on the roof now.
Thank you.
Next, George, can you give the Sergeant at Arms report, please?
Yes, I will. Okay, good afternoon to everybody. Two announcements for this upcoming week. We have on November 2nd, we got a happy birthday for Jose Halifax. And then on November 2nd, we also have a 21-year club anniversary for Susan Taylor. Those are our two announcements for this week. And then October 31st is Happy Halloween. So put on your mask and go trick or treat on the weekend.
All righty. Thank you, George.
Except I don't think they're going to allow us to trick or treat.
No.
No, they're not.
It's good. It's a virtual trick or treat, and then you just hold your candy up and you eat it.
I thought they're having a few events in town, but
They are.
yeah. But anyway, we'll go ahead and have several announcements. This Saturday, we're going to have a work project to paint the interior of the Rotary Clubhouse hut. We're going to meet at 8:30 a.m. Please let Fred or myself know if you can be there. We're hoping to have 5 or 6 Rotarians to do this. Hold on one second, please. I got the sheriff on the line. Hello, Joe Frank. I'm doing well. Diablo East Ranger Station. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you should stay up on the highway.
Okay, sounds good. Hunt area number 2. Hunt area number 2. Okay, thanks, Chauffeur. Bye. All right, sorry for the interruption here. Moving on to announcements. We're hoping to have 5 or 6 Rotarians to help us with this painting project. We're going to meet at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday, 302 East 9th Street. Next topic is we're going to be working on painting the interior of the building, but I'm also excited to announce that Rachel's son, James, will be starting his Eagle Scout project at the Rotary Club hut on Saturday, November 14th. And they're going to paint the exterior of the building, the 2 doors, and the trim. They're going to install 2 solar lights along the sidewalk and 2 solar spotlights to light up the Rotary sign when it is installed. And they're also going to install a bench and plants in front of the building. It's going to be really nice. It hasn't had an upgrade in years, and I think it's going to look like new. So we're really excited about that project. Anything else, Fred or Pat, you want to add about that project?
Yes, James needs volunteers from the Rotary to help him on Saturday.
We need some adults, or I'm afraid it's only the bottom half of the building that will be painted.
So we need some tall people, or people with ladders, it looks like. Yeah. Okay, I'll keep announcing it up until then, Rachel, and we'll try and get some people to step up. Okay.
And we will have breakfast and lunch there.
Okay, very cool. Next up, announcement that Kathy Knoll will be the chair of the nominating committee for the 2021-2022 Board of Directors. The committee will be contacting each of you to see if you want to be on this board. The election will be in December, so committee members will be contacting you. The other committee members working with Kathy are Cynthia and George. So we really appreciate you doing that. I can't believe I've been president for like 1/3 of my term already. The time is going by so fast. We are planning, but we have to plan for the future. We are planning on having our first 2021 Rotary Club Independence Day Rodeo planning meeting on Friday, November 20th. It will be a Zoom meeting, and I hope that everyone can attend it. The rodeo will be held on Saturday, July 3rd and Sunday, July 4th, 2021. So we start working on the rodeo as early as November and every month after that until July. I appreciate all the work that Gregorio puts into the newsletter each week. As noted in the newsletter, October is observed as Down Syndrome Awareness Month. Many of us know someone who has Down syndrome. And actually, I've heard that it can actually enrich the families' lives of people who have a child that has Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. I remember my cousin Jennifer has Down syndrome. When I was a kid, my 3 brothers and I would take turns asking her who was her favorite cousin. My brother Mark would ask her, and she'd say it was him. Then I would ask her, she'd say it was me. She said it was me, and so on. She's an awesome person, and she's doing very well. Next up, we have something exciting. We have Gregorio, who's going to run the attendance drawing to reward Rotarians for being at these weekly Zoom meetings. Let me go ahead and make sure I have on here, Gregorio, the share. You can share. I can share the screen.
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right. So let's give this screen share a try. And here we go.
It's like the Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, it is.
You show up, you have an opportunity to win.
Exactly. So this week we have a donation that was done by Las Brisas and Las Brisas Manor. It's a wine. I have it actually in the car, but I slipped the screen, so I didn't get it off because I didn't want to break it. So does everybody see the deal?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a shuffle, and here we go.
Whoa.
Fred wants to win.
He does.
No, Pat's the one that likes wine. Fred likes Lone Star.
So,
awesome.
Yeah, sir, he can pick it up at the Ramada Inn after Thursday at after 9 o'clock.
Congratulations, Ray. Thanks for all your work that you do on this. We've already said next week. Go on.
No, we are running low. And don't you more than
Rick, how come to you? Okay.
Can I call you back on the meeting? I keep getting calls. I have to wait the meeting. Next, we have a very exciting part of the program. We have our presentation. Please join me in welcoming Amistad National Recreation Area biologist Sarah Howard and American Conservation Expert and Elena Swick. We welcome them to our meeting today as our guest speakers, and they'll be presenting a fascinating program about monarch butterfly migration. So let me go ahead. Anything you'd like to say, Sarah, before Morgan and Elena take it away?
No, the smartest people here do all the talking.
I tell you, it has been great having them in the park. I mean, working here, they're smart, they're energetic, great for morale. I can't say enough good things about them, but we'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Morgan or Elena, whichever one is up first. And introduce yourself too, so they know who is who.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sarah, too. So I'm Morgan Delgado.
And I'm Elena Swick.
I'll go ahead and share our screen. And can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Put it in present mode. We're going to go ahead and start the presentation here. If you guys have any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and type them and ask them, or turn on your mics and ask them, and we'll try and answer them to the best of our abilities. But like Chris said, we are 2 interns here at Amistad National Recreation Area. We are here for a year, and we helped Sarah Howard, the head biologist, with any biology projects she has going on. And this past month of October, we actually were just doing some work and research on the monarch migration. So that's what we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the biology of monarchs, their migration, where they go, their life cycling, and where you can see them here in the park, what we do with them, and what you guys can do to help monarchs throughout their migration status. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the biology of the monarchs. So monarchs do metamorphosize, as many of you probably know. So this means that they have an egg stage, a larva stage when they're the caterpillar, pupa stage when they're in their chrysalis, and then finally the adult stage. And that's what we're pretty much going to focus on here, because that is what we are reporting when they come through on their migration. They're in their final adult stage of life. These first 3 generations, if you look at this little infographic on the left here, start around May, and the adult monarchs in these first 3 generations only have a lifespan of 2 to 6 weeks. So throughout those several months, they continue to reproduce and have children, grandchildren, until they get to the 4th generation. And this fourth generation is very special. The monarchs in this generation, we just lost. Our lights just went off. Like they're motion censored. But the monarchs in this 4th generation live up to 8 months. So they are unique as opposed to the other 3 generations. And this is important because these are the monarchs that we observe here on their fall migration status coming down, are in these fourth generation, so they last up to 8 months. There are two reasons that these monarchs live longer than the other three generations. The first one is because they do not become sexually mature right away like the other generations of monarchs. And because of this, they are not using as much energy to reproduce, and they're saving this energy, which allows them to have that longer lifespan. And then the second reason is that they are in a cooler location. So these cool temperatures actually slows down the monarch's metabolism, which allows them to also live longer. A couple other things. Monarchs are native to the Americas, and the important ones that we're focusing on here today are just south of Canada, and they're going to migrate all the way down through the lower 48 to Mexico. And we will talk a little more about this migration and show you guys some pictures of this entire fall and spring migration. Elena is going to talk a little more about their niche.
So what exactly do we mean by a niche? Well, a niche is a word that biologists and ecologists like to use to describe the role that a living thing, be it plant, animal, fungus, or anything, plays in its environment. Now, with monarch butterflies, they fill two primary niches in their habitat as well as their entire range. Now, the first one, and the one that they're probably most known for, is the niche of being a pollinator. Them and a lot of their insect cousins are actually quite valuable pollinators here in North America. Now, while monarch butterflies are pollinators, sometimes they're not as effective as, say, some of their insect cousins, such as moths, beetles, flies, or bees. But speaking of insects as a broad group, monarchs also do another great service to insect kind by being what conservation biologists call a flagship species. So a flagship species, I guess you could say that they're sort of the poster insect for invertebrate conservation. When people think of animal conservation, typically they may think of large birds like the bald eagle, large mammals like the Bengal tiger, or even large fish like the blue marlin. But insects sometimes get overlooked in terms of conservation. However, with a flagship species like the monarch butterfly, they can, in a way, stick up for the little guys, literally. So with the monarch being a flagship species, it kind of brings people in and introduces them to insect conservation. So from the monarchs, not only is it doing a great job for them to conserve their habitat and to conserve the monarch populations themselves, but in turn, if we conserve the monarch habitat and the monarchs themselves, we also conserve plant species like Asclepias onothyroides, or the longhorn milkweed. This is a very valuable plant to the monarchs because this is actually what's called their host plant, or the plant where they lay their eggs and the caterpillars feed on until they pupate. Next, of course, if we conserve, so sounds like feedback, sorry. Next, also, if we conserve the monarchs, we in turn conserve their insect cousins, including native bees, honeybees, beetles, and flies, and other valuable pollinators that we humans can definitely benefit from. I'm sure with fall now, a lot of us have bought things like apples, pumpkins, corn, chrysanthemums. Without these small native pollinators, we probably wouldn't have nearly the amount that we would have. So in order to conserve the monarchs, we would not just be doing a great service to them, but also to the plant communities and other insect communities found within these habitats. So, with this map here, this is actually from the Xerces Society, a great source, by the way, for information for monarchs. Now, you'll notice that on this map, there are actually two migrations, one in the spring and one in the fall. For the sake of this presentation and the time of the year, we're going to be focusing in on the fall. Now, with the fall, if you guys notice, let me just move my cursor here, you'll notice that these down-pointing arrows signifying the fall migration. There are populations all the way up here from the northern range of the milkweed, and farther south populations. They all sort of funnel down. It's a literal funnel shape all the way down to the central overwintering site here in Mexico. So that's their final destination. Now, along the way, just like some highway travelers going to, say, a vacation destination, they probably make little side stops along the way. Now, these little side stops are called roosting sites, and we're actually going to be talking a little bit more about that later on in the presentation.
Yeah, so a little bit more on statistics of their migration. That whole migration that Elena was just talking about in the previous slide is somewhere between 1,200 and 2,800 miles. So that really shows, before when I was talking about there are 4 generations, that shows why these little insects need time to travel this far and multiple generations. So this screenshot here is just a zoomed in picture of that bigger zoomed out migration that Elena had on the previous slide. And this is to really emphasize that funnel shape she was talking about. So this is really spectacular because pretty much every single year these monarchs, these tiny little insects, are consistent on this funnel shape where they come from the top of the lower 48 states throughout the continental US all the way down to Mexico. And the cool part about that is our location here. So Del Rio, Texas is almost spot on every single year through this funnel where they're going down to Mexico. And that's why we get to observe them here and have so much data that we've collected on them. And the reason that that's their northern range at the top of the United States is because that's the range of milkweed, which Elena just recently talked about is their host plant.
So now, speaking of monarchs and milkweed, well, the picture decided not to pop up, unfortunately. But with monarchs and milkweed, with milkweed being the host plant of monarchs, there are several factors sort of attributed to the unfortunate decline of monarch populations, and the decrease of milkweed and suitable milkweed habitat being a few of them. Not only this, but the loss of suitable breeding habitat in North America, in the United States especially, would also be another huge factor that leads to the decline of monarch butterflies. So a couple of things that we can kind of do is, of course, planting native milkweed, encouraging sort of native planting as opposed to like store-bought plants, but especially the milkweed is perfect for the monarch butterflies. Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
So now a little bit about roosting. I know we've been dropping this word a lot, and many people might not have heard of it unless you are an ecologist who deals with migrating bird species. Roosting is seen in any migrating species, mostly in birds, but also in monarchs here. So roosting refers to the congregation of them as a whole for rest or sleep. When you look at their entire migration journey, they do need to rest at some points. So monarchs do roost over from dusk to dawn, meaning that as soon as the light hits their wings and they feel the warmth from the sun, they actually leave the tree, whichever tree or vegetation they are roosting on, and continue their journey again. So pretty much only at night is when the sun is down, you'll see these monarchs roosting. It's necessary for large groups of migrating species, which I already touched on. The size of these roost sites do vary. This is our first year collecting data on roost site for Amistad, but we've observed trees with 3 roosting individuals and trees with up to 300. It really varies by the day. Every single day you can go out and see hundreds or maybe even just a handful. And there's still research going on as to what the benefits of this roosting are. The biggest one is anti-predation. That's the biggest hypothesis out there, that they congregate in these large groups, and the benefit of this can be warding off any potential predators. So this picture here on the left was actually taken at Amistad in October of 2015. And this is one of the largest I've seen. We didn't get to see any this large this year, unfortunately. But the roosting sites can get up to this number of individuals. And if I advance forward, it's a little closer view of the same tree. It's here at San Pedro Campgrounds. And if you look up there, all those tiny little orange ones are just individuals. They clump together and latch onto this tree to roost overnight. And then as soon as the sun hits them, like I said, they'll fly up and cover the sky. It's a really cool thing to see. So if you haven't, we suggest that you go out maybe next October. It seems like they've already passed us for this year, but these roosting sites can be a really spectacular thing to hear, or to see. I guess here too. You can hear their wings flapping as a group, which is really cool.
So what about some of the roost sites here at Amistad? Well, there are some roost sites that we've been monitoring, just like we said, and fortunately for us, these monarchs seem to be sort of creatures of habit. They actually are very picky with the trees that they select, and sometimes they often prefer to use the same trees year after year between the generations. So it's not like it's the same generation coming back and using the trees year after year. It's actually different generations using the same trees. Now these trees here at Amistad, you can kind of see in the background, they have almost fern-like leaves. These are the Vachellia farnesia. They are part of the legume family, so in the same family as, say, a locust tree or an acacia tree. Now, they usually are very picky about the trees they select again, but it's not just the trees that makes a roost site. There are also nectar sources. So these are flowering plants, usually shrubs or small flowering plants that provide a nectar source for the passing monarch migration. Now, going back to what I said about the trees, with these butterflies being different generations and then using the same trees almost year after year, scientists are still very puzzled with how they actually are able to find these trees. How do they get there? It's still a big mystery, and most scientists are still trying to figure it out. However, there are a couple of hypotheses floating around. One of them is that the butterflies are somehow guided by Earth's magnetic field in order to find these pinpointed locations on their way down to Mexico. Another guess, another hypothesis would be that it's actually genetic imprinting. Throughout the generations, the location of this has somehow become imprinted in sort of the DNA of the butterflies, or it may possibly be some type of environmental cues, such as weather, sunlight exposure, climate, temperature, and other such factors. However, it's still kind of up in the air. For further reading, however, I would recommend looking up some articles on Google Scholar. There are some fairly recent ones, even from this year, and it's a pretty interesting read.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about 3 other types of butterflies we see here at Amistad and in Del Rio. We do see a number of different species of butterflies. You can go onto our National Park Service website if you want to read more about all the different species. I've just included 3 others here that are most commonly mistaken for monarchs. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the American snap-nosed butterfly. So it's this one all the way over to the left, and from this picture, I don't know if you can tell, but it has this little snap nose. That's the easiest way to identify them. I know a lot of times you can't really get up close to these small little insects, and they don't stay where you want them to all the time. But if you do have the chance to see that, it's really cool. They actually have this long snout nose. They are commonly mistaken for monarchs sometimes. They have this hint of orange coloration that when flapping might give off the illusion of a monarch, but they're smaller and they have this kind of silvery brown color to them. They feed on hackberry plants, so if you have a lot of those around you, you might see more snout noses, and we're seeing a lot now because they come after long rains. And then the second one right here is the Gulf fritillary. So this butterfly is very common at Amistad, and they're easily recognizable by their bright orange coloration. And then on the underside of those wings, it's a flashy silver color. So if you see them flying, it's a really spectacular sight. And then the caterpillars of this butterfly actually feed on native passion vines here. So yeah, if you have some of those around your house, you might see more Gulf fritillaries. I put a monarch for reference right here. And then the one to the very right is the queen butterfly. So this one, as you can tell, looks very similar to the monarch, and they are mistaken for each other all the time. The queen butterfly is similar in the sense too that it also feeds on milkweed, therefore it's poisonous, just like the monarch butterfly is. They're very, very difficult to tell apart. One dead giveaway though is the black bandings on the forewings here. So you can see monarchs have them, whereas the queen butterflies don't. Then again, that can be hard to see unless you get a really good close-up of these butterflies.
So now, last but definitely not least, we are going to wrap up with some fun facts, but also a slide on what we all can do as a collective effort in order to help these insects. So to start off with the fun facts, so just like we said, the host plant / the main food source for monarch caterpillars is milkweed. Now, milkweed is a toxic plant. It has a sort of milky sap that leaches out, and the monarch caterpillars will actually consume this. Now, when they do, they actually build up some toxin reserves in their bodies that acts as sort of a weapon against predators. And both the caterpillars and butterflies, they don't sting, they don't bite. Aside from the butterflies, they don't move very fast. So their primary defense against predators would be the bright warning colors, as well as those toxin reserves that say, hey predators, if you eat me, you're gonna get sick. So if something like an ill-fated brown thrasher were to eat one of these butterflies, it would probably end up getting quite the stomachache. Now, these bright warning colors are another sort of defense, and also when the butterflies take off, that can be sort of a flash of bright color that can scare a predator. Now, once they're on the wing, a monarch butterfly can actually fly about 100 miles per day. Now, as sort of, I guess, hardy as these butterflies actually are, they aren't invincible. One of the main things that can actually slow them down would be cold temperatures. So anywhere between the mid-40s to the mid-50s, that can usually paralyze them, cause them to slow way down. Anything colder than that may cause death. But for the most part, they actually do have a fairly wide temperature range, tolerable temperature range. And also, when they're on the fly and they're migrating, they can sense out other butterflies, pheromones, and of course, different pollination and nectar sources by their antennae. Their antennae act as scent detectors, and they can zoom right in to those flowers.
Yeah, and a little bit more on the cold temperature. So it's actually, I believe it's at 55 degrees Fahrenheit is when they get paralyzed from flying. So they can just stick to the trees, and then at 41 degrees. And so once it hits 55 degrees, you'll see them on the ground. They can still crawl. And once it hits about 41 degrees Fahrenheit is when they're completely paralyzed. So if it's really cool outside, like today, and you see them crawling or on the floor, they're not necessarily dead. They might just still be trying to move. Their wings are paralyzed from flying. And to wrap it up, I'm going to talk a little bit about what all of you can do. You might have heard us talk about Journey North throughout this presentation. This is a great, great, great resource. I've included 2 screenshots from the website itself. The website is journeynorth.org. This screenshot on the left is the homepage, and you can actually register and make your own account. You don't have to do that though. You can just go on as a citizen and look at all of their resources. They talk about a lot of different species, including the monarch. And you can even look at maps. That is what this screenshot is to the right over here. And this specifically is the fall roosting map for monarchs. So as you can see, it uses citizen science. So if you did register, you could plot points and mark location if you saw any monarchs roosting. Through that resource, you could put the number of monarchs, a picture if you wanted to, and then a little description, maybe saying where it was, what the weather was like when you saw them, and then it filters them by this color by date. So earlier in the migration, there'll be lighter colors, and as it gets towards November, it'll get darker, just to make it a little easier to distinguish throughout the journey. A couple other things you could do is you could plant milkweed if you wanted to see these monarchs. We've been talking a lot about the migrating monarchs in this area, but we do have breeding monarchs. So if you wanted to see the breeding generations of monarchs, I would suggest planting milkweed to help out the species. And then one final thing is to maybe avoid using pesticides that could potentially kill the plants, milkweed, and the insects themselves.
If I could just jump in here. So the great thing about Journey North is it's actually an international effort. So you can actually see points from Canada and even from Mexico. So our neighboring city here in Del Rio, on the other side over in Mexico, Ciudad Acuña, there are several people over there taking points and making observations. Also, a good pro tip for uploading on Journey North is they love pictures. I have actually been in contact with some of the wonderful people who helped to run Journey North, and they absolutely love pictures. So the more pictures that you can take of the butterflies, definitely the better.
Thank you. These are some of our references. And if you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to try and help you guys answer those.
Where can you get the seeds to plant the milkweed?
So there are some different wildflower sites. I think, let's see. So I'm from Virginia, and I know a couple of the sites to buy from the East Coast, but as far as Texas and the West Coast, there are several seed sites that you can look up to actually get native seed plants. I'm trying to remember. I actually had a catalog from one of those that Sarah gave me. But actually,
there are a couple. I mean, just being national parks, I can't endorse, any one company or over another. But there are really good seed companies out there. If you just Googled native seeds for Texas, you're going to find them. Another thing I'll point out that's a really good effort too is it's called, because I know sometimes it's hard to get this stuff, we always say plant native plants, but it's actually kind of hard because you can't go to Walmart, Home Depot, a local nursery. They're not going to have this stuff. They're going to have milkweeds, but it's probably a tropical milkweed. That's what I've seen mostly in town. And those are not the best because they're not timed basically to give the monarchs what they need when they need it. So there is a group called Monarch Joint Venture. And Chris, I can send this out in an email or something too if people really want. Just so you have this resource. So what they do is, my mom does this too. So she grows milkweed. She's in Ontario, Canada, and then donates the seeds to this group. They house it, grow it out, and then they give it out for free. And so they're, again, Monarch Joint Venture. It's called the Milkweed Market. And again, I can write this out or send it to people. But that's probably your best bet because they'll only give you the milkweeds that are right for your region. And they're going to give you a whole plant, not just a seed, which sometimes is nice. They survive better. But again, Texas has really good native seed companies. You're going to find them if you just look for native milkweed seeds in Texas. And maybe there's a better, and Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, I'll just put a plug for them. They're a nonprofit in Austin. They have plant sales a couple times a year. Again, during COVID, it's hard to do stuff like this, but they're a great resource too for where to actually find the stuff.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other questions?
I have a question. You shut the door.
Yes.
If you see the butterflies 2 days in a row, does that mean it's two different groups?
So if you see them 2 different days in a row, they are definitely 2 different individuals because they are on this, at least if it was in October, they're on this downward journey like we were talking about the migration. But they're not necessarily 2 different generations. They're probably the same generation of monarch, but definitely 2 different individuals.
But these are groups. They're not individuals. When they get up in the morning when the sun's shining, they leave. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they continue their migration down south. So
if you saw another group the next day, it would be a totally separate group.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Somebody ask your question.
Okay.
I had a question. So I know my kids, when they were going to St. James, the first grade always had a class, and in October, they would always when the monarchs would come in and, St. James School, they have a lot of trees back there. And so they would gather the monarchs and then put some kind of marking on them, try to track them into Mexico. And I believe it was through the same project where you could kind of find out, okay, well, you marked your butterfly here. And once it got to Mexico, they will let you know when it got there. I thought that was a pretty interesting project.
Oh,
yeah. And I think they still do it over at St. James, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not familiar with it, but Sarah might know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's another really great, we keep using the term citizen science, just like all these people giving those observations to the map. So same thing, you can apply, there's a couple different groups that will just mail you a packet of those stickers. And the roofs are ideal because we've done it at this park before I was here. But in those cold mornings, if you get a cold morning, you can handle and pick them up and put that on without hurting them, pretty easily. You don't even really need to net them. So yeah, people do that. And then it's a pretty neat conservation model because then they go down to their overwintering sites and they actually pay folks that work in the Mexican reserves. And it's actually income for those local communities where they go and look on the forest floor. They'll find the tagged butterflies and then they'll count them and record them. And then exactly you can trace that exact number. Like this one was, given the sticker in Iowa and now it's here at this particular reserve. So yeah, that's still going on. They did that a lot, say about 10 years ago because actually nobody knew where these butterflies were going. I mean, of course the locals knew, but the greater science community had no clue. They just knew that they left. And so that program is really what helped them figure out these different flyways too. Like there's a western flyway that doesn't go to Mexico. There's several flyways on the eastern side of the country. So those programs, yeah, and they still go on because it's still fascinating information. It's really cool. There's a lot of really good binational programs. There's another fun one where the schools join up between the US and Mexico and they'll send each other like mail and the monarchs are coming kind of thing. And there's like an exchange between the schools. So it's a lot of neat stuff that happens.
When I first got to Del Rio, we had 3 trees in the backyard, real nice big trees. And one day I went out and I thought all of my trees had died and they were packed with millions of monarchs. Haven't seen that many in a long, long time, but I have some great photographs from that time, but that's been some years ago.
Yeah, I was hoping, this is my first year here as an intern, and I was hoping we would get to see size that big for their migration, but we didn't see any that big this year, and it seems like their migration has already stopped through here, stopped early. So it really does vary by year, but I've seen some awesome pictures from people at the park here who've seen hundreds and hundreds in a single tree. And the trees do look like they're dead. And then as soon as the light hits it, you can see that orange and and it moves. It's really cool to see. Wow.
How do you determine the population of monarchs that are migrating? How do you estimate that?
I have to interrupt, I'm sorry, but Doc, I have some of your pictures.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
I have that Doc actually took, and here's another.
Oh, wow.
Aren't they gorgeous?
They are.
Wow. And Doc did this. Yes, I've got it upside down. Anyway, there it is. But it's beautiful, isn't it?
They really are. Mm-hmm.
So he's a clever guy.
Amazing.
Sorry.
Did you have an answer, or maybe Sarah? I'm not too sure.
So these reserves, the Mexican reserves, it's not just one spot, by the way, too. It's a kind of a network of maybe about a dozen different places in the mountains. So what they'll do, again, they'll hire locals They will basically map an area around, so they'll find all the roost trees where the butterflies are. There could be 10 on that tree, there could be 10,000. It's, you can't, when they're all clustered together like that, you can't count them. So what they do is they walk around the trees. So you'll end up kind of like walking a big circle, basically, mapping that circle. And then you say, okay, that was 1 acre. And then the people over in the other sister reserve, they'll do the same thing. Okay, there was, 1.2 acres over there. So it's a real ballpark. I mean, again, when they're clustered up, there's just no way to individually count them. There are people looking at how to do that better, like using real high-tech mapping stuff. But for now, it's just that they just map the trees that they're in, and then it comes out as an acreage. And then they basically just convert it using, best guess. So I think for the past, I've been here in Del Rio since 2014. The population has really bounced around about 4 or 5 million. That is what they end up mapping in Mexico that make it through the winter. And the conservation goal or the historic level of monarchs is much closer to 20 million. So 4 or 5 million doesn't sound too bad, right? But it's actually only about a quarter of what their historic numbers were. So they're definitely not doing good. And I really briefly mentioned that Western Flyway. There is a population that's only on the West Coast, and they're in dire straits. I mean, they're very close to extinction. So our Eastern Flyway is not doing great, but it's, for the moment, at least doing better than that. And I think it all comes back to milkweed. All the science keeps pointing to that. There's a lot of other ways that they're harmed, but lack of milkweed, industrial farming, overuse of pesticides that have taken away the milkweed, that's really what's harmed them the most.
Where are the best places in the park to find the milkweed and the monarchs? Would that be on the trail between the old building and San Pedro campground, or as other places?
Yeah, so San Pedro, that's been a good place to see them. They definitely roost there. This year we didn't see as many there. Elena here did more of the actual observing of them, so she might know some of the better spots.
So Spur 406 is down on the opposite end of the lake from where the old visitor center was. It's down near kind of a lesser known boat dock, as well as the IBWC right near the border crossing by Governor's Landing. Those are probably some of the top 2 spots to actually go and see them. San Pedro campground, it's hit or miss, and sometimes you may sort of run into people camping there. So usually IBWC is what I would recommend.
Yeah, which is over by the dam. But that's for roosting sites. And you have to either go super early in the morning before the sun rises or late at night as it's setting. But a great place to just see them flying over is Spur 454. Mm-hmm. You can actually just put a chair out there in the middle of the day, and I think Elena saw about 700.
Yeah.
700 one day just fly over you, which is a really cool sight to see too.
10 a.m. is the best time, any later than about noon. So 10 a.m. to noon is definitely the high traffic time.
Great. Any other questions?
Well, thank you guys. You've been a great audience to have our first presentation too. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Great information.
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks again. And we'll talk to you later. You're welcome to stay. We're getting ready to wrap up the program. You're welcome to stay just a few more minutes. I just have a few more announcements. Fred Bowers is the program chair for the month of November. Our guest speaker next week will be the head consul for the Consulate of Mexico in Del Rio, Maria de la Paloma Villaseñor Vargas. She goes by Paloma, and she's going to talk about the consulate's mission to protect the rights and interests of immigrants coming into the United States and the importance of the relationship between the cities of Del Rio and Acuña.
Great.
And then we'll move on to the four-way test. Doc, would you like to lead us in the four-way test?
Let someone else do it today.
Okay.
Okay.
Miss Gloria?
Oh golly, he's complete. My head is somewhere else.
Let me do it then, okay?
I'm getting rained on.
I'll go ahead and do it then.
Thank you.
Of what we think, say, or do.
Or do.
Is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
It's the truth.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and
better
friendship?
friendship? Will it
Be beneficial to all concerned.
And is it
fun?
Yay!
Thank you, everybody. Hope you found this presentation to be interesting. I know I've
Very nice.
all
It
the
was
Let me say one
wonderful. I
thing.
loved
Very
everything.
good.
If you
Yes.
think of any other questions about monarchs, just let me know, and they're just down the hall. I can ask them.
Mhm. And next time
that's
somebody is called upon to say the four-way test, if you don't know it, say number 1, number 2, number 3, and everybody will go ahead and repeat it. So you don't have to know it. It's just the thing with things.
Fred, we can just ask
My head
you,
was somewhere else. Sorry.
Mr. Rotary. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good one.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.